Welcome to PENSDOWN. Here we sit with media practitioners, practicing or otherwise, and we get to understand what they go through in the line of duty, besides conversations about matters arising in the media. Today, I have been joined by a seasoned broadcaster and academic who has over 2 decades experience in presenting news, supervising and producing radio and television content. Currently, she is deputy continuity announcer, newsreader, programs producer, and zonal head of programs for Radio Nigeria, Treasure FM, within the South-South zone, that is Port Harcourt, Nigeria. She lectures in mass communication at the River State University, Port Harcourt, Nigeria, where she blends her wealth of knowledge from her PhD in linguistics and communication studies with her extensive repertoire of industry-relevant experience to groom the next set of communications professionals. She is dedicated to quality news delivery. She has excellent presentation skills and is able to work independently and also as a part of a team. I have been joined today on PENSDOWN by Dr. Rachel Ebere Uzuogu, Onah. Thanks for joining me.
You're welcome. Thanks to be here too. Thanks for having me.
Eva, I am excited today because I have the opportunity to bring the classroom and the industry together in one conversation. Fantastic. My very first question, journalism, the field of journalism is having a lot of attrition. So many qualified professionals are abandoning the profession. From your experience in the classroom, are the numbers in terms of admission also down as compared to, let's say, corporate communications or public relations? Or there is some glimmer of hope as far as the numbers in the classroom is concerned with regard to those who are interested in journalism?
Well, ironically, the number of people taking up mass communication, which has actually been unbundled, because before we had mass communication as a course, but now it's been unbundled. We have broadcasting, we have public relations. So you don't just go to the university and study only mass communication now. You can go and read broadcasting as a course. You can go and read journalism. You can go and study developmental communication. You can go and study other arms of mass comm instead of lumping them into one. But what we see every day is that the number of enrollment is actually very high. People are, so that in a class, you can see like 500 students in a class. And you see like 600. People are actually embracing the trade everywhere, every day. So we see more enrollments.
How did you discover the journalist in you? You've done over 2 decades.
Yeah. Basically, people keep telling me I have a nice voice. Growing up, first of all, I had this passion for broadcasting. Listening to radio, watching television, and I started aspiring to be like one of them. It happens to every young person growing up. You know, when you see newsreaders, newscasters, programs anchors, so I want to be like this people one day. So that desire was in me. But the journalist in me was discovered actually during my youth service. I was just answering a phone call. Somebody said, "Oh, the man dropped and said, you have a nice voice. Have you tried broadcasting?" So that like woke up something in me. You know, I said, "Okay, why not?" So, and my husband that time too, I shared it with him, and he was happy, and he propelled me actually. I owe my journalism career to him because he actually took me around some radio stations. Then we went to a particular radio station where he had a link, and that was it for me. That was how I started out in Enugu State Broadcasting Corporation, actually, ESBS Enugu. So that was it for me. After my youth service in 1996, I was given an opportunity to come in. We were trained, and I started. That was how the journey actually started for me. So the desire has been inborn.
You have been a broadcaster for all these years, that is over 2 decades.
Yeah.
And from your profile, I see radio has a chunk of that.
Sure.
I am curious, for instance, for something like news reading, which seems to be a second self to you, haven't you ever gotten tired? Or what keeps you going all these years?
Okay, that's a very good question. When I got into Radio Nigeria in 2005, I worked with a woman, Pastor Mrs. Emma Ekpo. She's
Okay.
retired right now. She was the one God used to give me this job. So the way we're working, we're not doing it like every other job. It's a federal government institution.
Yeah.
But we're not working like government workers. This woman will sleep in the office. And when it's your time to work, you must work. No excuses. So that passion she kind of developed that passion in every one of us that time. And we grew with it. We now saw the job not just as a government job, we saw it as our passion. We saw it more like our baby. And that was how we work. Even till now, even though I've risen to a position where even if I supervise, I say I'll do nothing else, nobody will query me. But I read the news this morning because the passion is already there. I developed the passion and it has become like second skin to me. So if you tell me not to go on air again, you kind of have removed the part of me. So that's it.
You don't seem to want journalism or mass communication or broadcasting to depart from you anywhere you go. In the office, that is what you do. In the lecture hall, you are doing something related to it. Indeed, at the PhD level, you did something connected to that.
Yeah.
What is the secret behind this, unbreakable loves for everything communication, everything journalism, everything broadcasting?
Let me say that the more you do it, the more you fall in love with it. For instance, when I was the recognition you get, not that there's no money in the profession. That's number one. You don't get rich, but some people through some links you can get rich. But broadcasting doesn't make anyone rich. But you get a lot of attention, especially when I was on TV. I go to the market, I go to places, and I get noticed. It's not Rachel. Are you not? The people will call my name fool. And that thing, I mean, it was very special to me, which means I'm impacting lives.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the fact that I was impacting lives, and I still am. Then when I got on radio, my fans followed me from TV to the radio. They said, so you moved from this station to this station, like that. So I was kind of happy that people are listening to me. I'm touching lives. Then someone calls me up and will say, Rachel, that music you played that day, I was in a very terrible mood. But immediately you played that music, my spirit came alive. Because, in fact, the lady sharing the story actually came to the radio station. And said, Rachel, you did something that woken up my spirit. Till tomorrow, she's still talking about it. She's right now the deputy chairman of a local government area. So we established this and all that. So when you know that you're impacting lives, I see it as a ministry of my own. Everybody has a calling. I see it as a calling too. So that's why I've not departed from it.
I am not an academic, but let me attempt to go back to the little I learned in Ghana Institute of Journalism. I just hope I don't run into trouble once I'm dealing with an expert.
I'm not an expert in academics.
One thing I know
I'm not a professor.
Right. Mass communication has to do with communicating to a diversified audience. When you sit on radio, let's say you're hosting a program or you're reading the news, how are you able to connect with a diversified nature? Even Nigeria is a really ethnically, religiously diverse society. And I'm sure the reach of your radio station might go a little beyond the state or the immediate state within which it is supposed to be. How are you able to connect with as many as possible, irrespective of background or, interests?
Well, like Radio Nigeria, where I work, Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, the key word is keep it short and simple. They will tell you that there's no need to speak big grammar. Like you're a professor, you're a doctor. No, 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 no. Keep it short and simple. So have an acronym that is KISS. KISS. Keep it short and simple.
Simple. Okay.
That when you get on radio, know that the pepper seller is listening to you, the professor is listening to you. So those sound so verbose that people will not understand you. You wouldn't have communicated. So don't go showing off that you have degrees and all that on air. So keeping your vocabulary short and simple. So with that, you can communicate with every facet, every layer of the society, the low, the middle class, and the upper class. So by keeping it short and simple, we're able to achieve that.
Being the head of programs for your station means that you are a leader, a team leader within your establishment. Yeah. What has been the most difficult day for you with your team?
All right, in broadcasting right now, in my office, for instance, in Radio Nigeria, and in broadcasting generally these days, you find out that people who take up broadcasting are mainly women. I know what it means when they say women don't like women. The most difficult thing, situation I've faced is women failing to recognize that you're their boss. I don't know how to put it, but it's
as a fellow difficult. Woman.
Yes, as a fellow woman. And there's a lot of envy and jealousy in the system. For instance, when I came on board, when I came into the system, I rose fast because I came in with a master's degree. And that's right. And my boss loved me so much, and she's a woman. And she kept giving me opportunities, to represent her functions, to do one or two things. And some people that were there before me, it didn't sit down well with them. It didn't sit well with them. And they did everything possible to spoil my relationship with her. So that got to me. Most times I'll pray, I'll say, God, why is this happening? But that has been the most difficult thing I've ever had to deal with. The fact that you're ruling over people who do not want to accept leadership simply because they feel either you're too young for them, which I'm not, or they feel you shouldn't be there. If they have the opportunity, they will take away that position from you. So that's the most difficult thing I've had to deal with. Knowing that you're leading people who do not feel you should lead them. No matter how hard you try, no matter how low you bring yourself, no matter what you do, they say, oh, Rachel, you have a good heart. You do this, you're accommodating. But behind you, they say all sorts. So that is not easy for me to deal with. I remember when I was working at a television station, CTL Cable TV, I faced the same scenario. It got to a point that I went to my boss. I said, I don't think it's God's time for me to lead yet. Please take away this position from me. I don't want it anymore. But he didn't even talk to me. Then I left that place in 2005 and joined this new place. Lo and behold, leadership was waiting for me again. I say again in my mind, So leading people, especially leading your fellow women, is not an easy job at all.
Does journalism pay?
You said?
Does journalism pay?
Yeah. Oh, okay, whether it pays, whether journalism pays. Like I said before, it pays. It pays because not your salary. Your salary won't pay you. But I know that journalism has opened a number of doors for me. Okay. Excuse me. For instance, getting the part-time lecturing job. I went one day to see a friend of mine said, why don't you go to this university and see this vice chancellor and all that? Invite him for a radio program. I said, okay, how do I start? I wrote a letter. I went there. I waited for the man for a couple of hours. When he came, said, yes, you're looking for me. What do you want? I said, I'm so person. The man grabbed me. And that is, he hugged me. He was so excited. Oh, you're this person. I'm your fan. So through that, you get one or two things to, before you know it, one thing led to another. And I was offered that lecturing appointment. Because what? Because he heard me on radio, because he's my fan on radio. And I have one or two things too that have come my way just because I'm a journalist. So journalism pays, it does pay. if you distinguish yourself in what you're doing, just like every other trade. If you do it like artistically, don't expect that it will pay you. But if you do it the right way, you're passionate about your job, you want to be the best of who you are, God being on your side, you pray about it as well. I mean, God will make a way where there seems to be no way. So journalism pays.
With these more than 2 decades, you've been an on-air personality, be it on the screen or behind the microphone. Will you say that you still have your private life? Do you have a private life?
Yes, it's a thing of choice. You know, most people in the media, they like going out, partying and all that.
Mm.
For me, I have my private life. It's your choice. I won't say it's your choice. But people who are, I'm an introvert. The extroverts in broadcasting will tell you they don't have their private life. But I still have my private life. You know how to create a balance in everything, where to draw the line. Don't overdo things. If you want to have your private life, you can still have your private life. I still do have my private life.
How effectively have you been able to combine the duties of a home and that of the profession? You have a home, you have a profession. How have you been able to effectively get the balancing act right, such that, navigation is not too difficult?
Okay, a very big task, I must tell you. One thing you should note is that if God has given you a family, it's your duty to build up that family, no matter what. Just put it in your mind that this family must succeed. So I've had occasions where I told myself, you give attention to whoever requires it. I had an occasion where I had to take my little daughter to work. I was on night shift. I took her to the studio.
Wow.
You know, I can't leave her at home. Nobody to take care of her. I can't because and if she's not with me, my mind will not be at rest.
Yeah.
So all I did was to carry her to the studio. There are many occasions like that. I take her to work. I take my kids to work. That's the requirement of the job. If you want to be a good mom, for you to concentrate and do your job the right way, so that you don't have divided attention. At least you know the child is there. When the child is scared, you have food, you have water, you give to the person. So with that, I mean, your home is balanced, your job is balanced. Nothing is left unattended.
I am interested in this, your kids with you at work scenario. How did they find the environment? Did they make you run around or
well, not running around per se. I know that one time my little daughter, when she was 3 years old, I was in the studio reading the news. I said, sit down there, don't talk. So I finished reading the news and she said, have you finished? And it went into the microphone. You know? So yeah, it went on air. Have you finished? And all that. They find it exciting anyway. Being around my radio station, they'll have free Wi-Fi to browse with and all that. Okay, mommy, let's go to your office. That's an attraction for them. So they find it exciting actually.
What are the incidents that represent your golden memories? These years, your golden memories. Golden memories.
Okay. Golden memories. The high point for me was when I got this job I'm doing. In 2005, I was working in a television station where I was being owed, excuse me, so much salary, months of salary, backlog. And I was longing to leave. I was longing to leave until the way God made it, I got this job. The day I got this job, I was very, very happy. I danced. So it was a high point for me because for instance, the job security, no matter how small, excuse me, the salary will be, but you have job security, your salary will come whenever you want it, every month, your share of your pay and all that. So that was a high point for me. And when I have to interview personalities on radio, some personalities that ordinarily you won't come across them. But being a broadcaster gives you that opportunity to engage them in discussion, have a one-on-one with them. They'll ask you for your contacts, give you an appointment to visit their office and all that.
Yeah.
So that's a high point for me. Meeting people that ordinarily in the society you couldn't have been privileged to meet, but by virtue of your job, you get to meet them. So that's a high point for me.
Which of these high-profile interviews would you classify as the most challenging?
Okay. Should I say the one I had with a vice chancellor?
Okay.
Challenging because he's a veterinary doctor. I know any interview you have to do, you read up on it and do some background check. I'm not a scientist. I did arts. So having to interview this man as a vet doctor and all that, it was kind of challenging because some of the terms he was using, I wasn't at home with them. but you know, but I just have to do it because my job requires me to do that. So that's one of them.
In Ghana, there is something called Sole.
Called what?
In Ghana, there is something called Sole. It is the shortened form of solidarity. In Nigeria, it is called the brown envelope. In Cameroon, it is also called the brown envelope. What is your take on this brown envelope issue?
Well, should I say, brown envelope, brown envelope. I don't see it coming to an end in the industry. Brown envelope is referred to as gratification offered to journalists when they do certain jobs or when they go on assignment. They are given money for transport and all that. And ironically, I have a brown envelope right now. Sorry about that. Ironically, I came for an event, and right now, the venue of the event, and I was given this brown envelope. Every one of us. so as they said, see your brown envelope. I couldn't have said no because at least that will cover the money for my fuel and expenses I made coming for the event. But one word of caution for journalists. Some people go out of their way to beg for this thing, which shouldn't be integrity. Integrity is everything. Give yourself some respect. Don't go begging people. You bring down yourself. So I will advise my colleagues who are in the habit of doing this. I maybe threaten people and say, if you don't do this, I'll write this against you. It's uncalled for. And then don't belittle yourself going to beg money from people. It's uncalled for. Doing that, you bring down your image, you bring down your personality. But as for when you're offered the brown envelope, everyone that came for the event is given. Why not? You collect your own and leave. So that is it. So the brown envelope syndrome, I don't see it stopping. It has come to stay. But people shouldn't beg for it.
Yeah, we shouldn't approach it with a sense of entitlement.
Yeah, it's not right. It's not right at all.
Okay, very well. In your position, you are a leader, a supervisor in the newsroom or wherever you work. Obviously, I'm sure you have interactions with entry-level journalists, younger ones that look up to you and all that. Sure. Formally or informally, are there some professional dilemma issues that they approach you with, and what do those things border on professionally?
Okay, for instance, we have issues with NBC, National Broadcasting Commission here in Nigeria, the regulatory body. Yes. So as a leader, before anything goes on air, you're required to see and hear, excuse me, whatever is going to be discussed on air. So most times, getting these guests is not easy. Guests that will feature on the program, topics to discuss. You have to be on your toes, listening to the radio station, vetting scripts and all that to make sure the wrong thing doesn't go on air. Because if that thing goes on air, you'll be held responsible for it. Yeah. If the radio station is fined, when the hammer starts falling, you'll be the first, to get hammered, and it will come in form of maybe a caution, a query, or even a sack letter. So that makes you as a supervisor to be on your toes, make sure the right thing, make sure every information you let out is filtered and is in order, especially right now that is Nigeria is preparing for presidential and governorship election. The politicians are very fond of putting people into trouble. So this is a time that everyone should be cautious, extra cautious to make sure the wrong thing doesn't filter out. So as a leader, you should be on top of your game. As a leader, you're saddled with that responsibility to be on the lookout to the things that shouldn't go on air and make sure they do not go on air. For you to say, my subordinate put it out there, what are you doing as a boss? What did you do? How did you let it out? So our job is a very sensitive one that requires extra carefulness. So that's one major problem we normally face. Because when the chips are down, you're the first to be blamed.
Yeah. Social media has created richer bloggers in Africa than richer journalists. One of the most exciting conversations I have had on PENSDOWN was with the celebrated Mr. Lekon Tufodorin. And one point he made is that maybe journalists lived in self-denial that social media would not last, which is why we did not maximize the opportunity. But my question is, were we asleep? Why didn't we who have the training in communication take advantage of such an exciting platform to better our own economic fortunes?
Should I say we didn't see it coming? It took us by storm. It took us unawares. When all these things were coming, we just say, all these platforms have. But before you know it, the thing overtook us. Now, what is left for us to do is to latch onto all these platforms to sell ourselves, sell our radio stations. So a typical on-air personality you see today has presence, has on-air presence on the social media. For instance, I have my Twitter account, even though I'm still upcoming. I have my Twitter account, I have my Facebook, I have a YouTube channel. Most times, whatever I do on radio, I put it on my YouTube channel. So it has taken us by storm. What we can do is to try and catch up with the trend so that you'll not be laid back. We're not doing old school broadcasting, but make sure you have online presence. That will make people to connect to you. Your radio station should be online. Your newspaper should be online. Even as an on-air personality, make sure you have enough on-air presence to keep up with the trend. So self-development is the word.
You teach mass communication. I am curious, has there been a day that your own students have critiqued your performance on air before in your class?
No, they don't have the courage to do that because because what they do is that they have this fear now. My lecturer. They don't want anything that will make you to reduce marks from them. So they always say, "Now you did well. I listened to you. You did this well. You did that well." But they would have that boldness, like confront you and say, "Auntie, you didn't do it well this year or that." So I've not come across such yet.
Do you look forward to such a day?
Yeah, why not? I like being critiqued. It's not criticism, but critic. Being critiqued. There's a difference between being criticized and being critiqued.
Yes.
Criticism is a negative one where somebody intends to run you down. Somebody points out your error with an intention to run you down. Well, critiquing means somebody walks up to you, Rachel, that thing you were calling, it's not like that, to see how to do it. And you know that this person is doing that with every sense of humility to see you get better. Not that the person is being judgmental. That is critiquing. So there's nothing wrong with somebody critiquing you. Nobody knows it all. I'm still learning, and I like it when people correct me, call my attention to things I didn't do well. It's my pleasure. It will be my pleasure to take such corrections.
If we are to subtract 30 years from your age today and give you an opportunity to choose a profession all over again, is it still going to be broadcasting?
Nah, it will not be broadcasting. Certainly not, because I've seen it. Okay, let's say I've seen it all, even though I've not seen it all. I would like to try my hands on something else.
Like
Maybe lecturing.
full time?
Yeah, why not? I
Wow.
like, in fact, lecturing. I discovered that my next passion is lecturing. I like it when I interact with my students, talk with them. There's this chemistry between us.
Mm,
You're imparting lives. I just love it. I like
mm,
the energy that comes with it.
mm,
Helping people to know where they're going in life, mentoring them.
mm. What is your assessment of the quality of journalism in Nigeria today? There are claims that standards have fallen. Journalists now don't speak good English. Some are reckless in the way they write, among other things. You have the benefit of an experience in academia and industry.
Hmm.
What would you say is your assessment?
Yeah, the situation in journalism, situation of journalism in Nigeria is it calls for concern.
Mm,
First off, when a graduate looks for work, it's just like teaching job now. When a graduate looks for a job and cannot get, next to the best person buys a midget, gets to events saying I'm a journalist, doing all sorts of terrible things in the name of journalism. The situation is really, really worrisome because we have a lot of fake journalists in the system. We have a lot of people who cannot speak good English. They're just going about begging for money because they need something to put in their stomach, claiming they are journalists when they are none. So we have a case where the industry has been battered and regulations need to be put in place to check this trend. Because you go for an event, I mean, you see how they are like flies all over the place, all around personalities. They will interview after that, they start asking for money. It's
mm,
belittling the trade. It's making our trade look, should I say, beggarly.
yeah.
So, and if the trend continues, I wonder where we'll be in the next 5 years. So, journalism in Nigeria, maybe because of the unemployment in Nigeria, because of economic situation, people are hungry. Graduates will come out from school, no job to do for 5, 6, 7 years. They become self-acclaimed journalists. So if government can put measures in place to better the lots of people in the country economically, financially, and otherwise, I think this trend can be put in check. So I must tell you that it's a very sad situation right now
Mm, mm,
in Nigeria. I'm not going to pretend about it.
mm.
So that is the situation.
There's a quick follow-up on what you have just said. On the back of this, your submission, do
Mm.
you agree to calls for the licensing of journalists?
Sure, I'm an advocate of that. Before you take to the trade, you should be licensed. That is how every profession is. And there should be checks and balances. There should be measures should be put in place to discipline every members. So the NUJ, Nigerian Union of Journalists in Nigeria, should rise up to the demand and put some things in place to make sure people are licensed before practicing.
Mm. Is there no downside to any attempt to license journalists, sorry?
There's no downside to it, just like the legal profession. Journalism is like any other profession. It's like law, legal profession is like the medical profession. Most professions operate with licenses.
Mm,
So, for instance, you cannot say because the doctors are being licensed, it puts a mark on their trade. No, rather, it will put the doctor in check so that you don't do the wrong thing. You cannot say because the lawyer has a license, it
mm,
makes the lawyer look inferior. No. So if
mm,
you start licensing journalists, I think it will make them up their game instead of the unwholesome practices that is prevalent these days.
mm. One colleague I hosted here said that for him, the problem with an attempt to license is that politicians might end up hiding behind fellow journalists who are saddled with a licensing opportunity to frustrate critical journalists?
Sure. Investigative journalists, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, we can't rule out that because they're very desperate. They can cash into it. But that will not stop the right thing from being done. They should go ahead and give them the licenses. Even though there are ways of knowing such people too.
A lot of media houses are springing up all over the place with the fingerprints of politicians and politically exposed persons. The increasing political ownership of the media. Are we caught in trouble? Is there a cause to be concerned and be worried?
There's a big concern to be worried. There's a big concern because by the time you have a lot of politicians owning radio and television stations, it spells doom for any country because they want you now to dance to their tunes.
Yeah.
They want journalists to write what they want. You can't be critical anymore because you can't come to my radio. He who pays the piper dictates the tune, it is said.
Yeah.
So you can't come to a radio station I own and start criticizing me. These politicians, they don't want to be criticized. They want people to sing their praises. So that's why they're investing in media houses, so that you'll be singing their praises 247. So it spells doom because nobody will tell anybody the wrong thing he or she is doing as a politician. By the time we allow this trend to continue. And the honest people who are ready to do the right thing do not have the money to invest in the industry. So it calls for concern, actually.
Has anybody ever approached you with anything monetary or material to compromise any story you were doing or any kind of material you were putting together for news?
Of course, they have now. They have. You can't rule it out. It happens. It happens. Even with threats too, accompanying them. It happens. So what can you do? When you see that the threat is so much, you choose your life above whatever story. You have to be alive to write the story. It's only a journalist that is alive that will write any story. If you know that your life is under threat, the only reasonable thing to do is to back down. But you cannot be taking bribes. If you know your life is under threat, all you do is just to drop the story of history.
How many more years do you want to go before walking away from the microphone or the camera, whichever applies?
Maybe the next 10 years.
But I'm curious, with this your love and passion for journalism, broadcast, and mass communication, would you encourage your children or your child to take to the same profession?
Yeah, why not? It's a question of what the child wants. So you don't stop. If they see what mommy is doing and they like it, you can't stop them. I will encourage them to go ahead. I will encourage them.
Is social media a challenge to journalism today, or it is a contribution to the effectiveness of how journalists practice?
I think it makes the traditional media more effective, and it keeps them in check as well. Social media is a good trend. It's helping the traditional media to sit up, and it's making them to be trendy. Because when you're serving old story, and maybe it's something that trended on social media for like a month or 2 months ago, and you're just carrying it in your bulletin, it makes you look stupid. So I think social media is keeping us on our toes. It's a good compliment to the traditional media.
Some West African countries earlier this year got very poor ratings as far as the Press Freedom Index is concerned. Freedom of the press, are we living the reality or is only on paper?
To a large extent, it's only on paper. Because the press is not really free. It's not. For instance, I work for the federal government, I cannot wake up now and go and broadcast. Maybe I see policies that are against humans, policies of government that are not in tandem with the good of human beings in Nigeria, citizens of Nigeria. Or maybe the government made policies that are not right. Then I'll just rise up and start criticizing it. I dare not, because I work for the federal government. So the press is not free, because the organization you're working for determines what you broadcast. The politician you're working for determines what you broadcast. So you're loyal to one boss or the other. So whatever you're doing, you have to make sure it's in line with what your boss wants. So whoever is paying you determines what you broadcast. So the press is not free in the real sense of it.
10, 20 years from now, what do you think journalism will look like based on the kind of practice we have in this system, especially based on your response on the quality, if things do not change?
I'm afraid the social media will overtake the traditional media. And journalism, we'll see a lot of unprofessional conduct among journalists. So if the trend is not checked. Okay, so that is it. So if things are not done to check the excesses of fake journalists in the system, it's going to spell doom to the system. In the next 10 years, there's going to be a lot of chaos in the system. So it's time we started rising up to check the trend, to make sure illegalities are taken out of the system.
In these over 20 years, was there ever a breaking point, that point you nearly turned your back and moved into something else?
Of course, even right now, I'm tempted to. Right now, I'm tempted to. I feel I've had enough of it.
And now you want to go into full-time teaching?
Try something else.
But the full-time lecturing you talked about, is it going to be mass communication, or it will be a different area you're talking about?
No, same mass communication. Mass communication.
Do you have an advantage as an industry person who has now metamorphosed into an academic? Do you have an advantage in terms of teaching?
Of course, because when you teach and you tell people your experience in the field, it goes a long way to buttress whatever you're saying. So that's a very big advantage, that I have industry experience and I'm in the classroom. I mean, it will make the students to connect easily with you, whatever you're telling them, because you're bringing a lot of experience to bear.
You are a member of the Nigerian Women Journalist Group, the River State chapter. Representation of women in journalism or in the media has always been a topic that keeps coming up from time to time. What is it that is making some women shy away from this profession?
Yes, it's a very demanding profession, actually. For instance, I must tell you the truth. If you're a journalist, you will hardly have time for your home, for your husband, for your children. So it's very difficult for married women to be in the profession. So that is what is making a lot of women, and some men cannot stand the fact that you leave your house in the morning and maybe till midnight, they're still calling, oh, darling, I'm at a location covering an event. No man takes that with a pinch of salt. So journalism is just like banking. It's very demanding. At times you go to remote areas to cover stories. At times your life is being threatened. And nobody can put up with such a thing. You can do that when you're single, but not when you're married. So any man putting up with it is just tolerating. There's nothing else I can do. So that's the way I look at it anyway.
One lady told me here that the issue of ladies in journalism is also that society sees them as a bit too exposed. They know too many people, too many big men. And that there are perceptions and misconceptions about them, which becomes a dampener eventually, causing some of them to leave the craft.
Exactly. As an personality and as a journalist, people look at you as okay, you have come into contact with a lot of personalities, a lot of people know your name, a lot of people want to associate with you. So the men in your life, they feel threatened by this. They feel unsafe that one day maybe somebody will just grab them away from you.
Yeah.
So that's the plight of women journalists, actually. You can't rely on the fact that a lot of people want to associate with you, especially as an on-air personality. They don't just want to know you, they want to have your number, they want to be contacting you, they want to be talking with you from time to time. But it's left for you now to know how to manage it, and it's not easy to manage.
I was on your YouTube channel and I saw you had quite a number of videos on Pastor W.F. Kumuyi. I am a member of Deeper Life. I'm a member of Deeper Life Bible Church.
Wow.
So I am curious. This is just a personal question. Are you?
No problem.
Are you his fan or a member of his church or something?
Pastor Kumuyi was the first person that taught me everything I ever knew in Christianity.
Oh, wow.
So I was a member of Deeper Life. I wedded in Deeper Life.
Oh, okay.
So till tomorrow, he's still my pastor.
Fantastic.
Except that my marriage had issues along the line. That was the only reason I left Deeper Life, because I didn't want to live with that memory.
Okay.
But till tomorrow, he's still my daddy. Anytime he's in Port Harcourt, I get invited to come, and it's always a pleasure. The last time I went outside Port Harcourt, many kilometers, the remote area in Port Harcourt, outside Port Harcourt, to receive him. So it's always a pleasure for me.
Is it Bori? You went to Bori?
Yeah, Bori Crusade.
Yes, it was a global crusade. We also watched it here.
Yeah, so I went there, and it was a pleasure talking with him one-on-one. At the point I shook hands with him. So it's very memorable to me. Somebody I started listening to when I was a child, when I was a teenager, to come and see him one-on-one. So it's always a privilege. Yes, that's where the Deeper Life thing is coming from. That's where the love is coming from. Because the story of my life cannot be written without him.
That's right. I want to pull the brakes on this exciting note.
Okay.
It's been an exciting conversation with you on PENSDOWN. I'm truly grateful for your time.
My pleasure.
This has been PENSDOWN. Today we've had the honor and the company of Dr. Rachel Ebere Uzuogu Onah, all the way from Port Harcourt, River State, Nigeria. She joined us and we have had a conversation with her in respect of her journalism journey and matters arising. Thanks for joining us. We are back next time. We'll have another colleague here to talk to us about their journalism journey. Bye for now.